Hello, it's Classy here back with another Tribes video, and today I will be doing a showcase of the UR Inojin from last banner, and this Inojin has 74,000 power, level 95 and tier 17. Shout out to AJ4Days for providing the clips, and let's just get right into it. So first we're taking a look at the art. Although I don't know this character too well, I've seen him in the manga a couple of times, but I've never really connected with this character. I think that this art actually looks really good. Obviously, he's related to Sai, so he has the scrolls, and I like how the art that he draws is more vibrant, a little bit less realistic than Sai's. So I think it fits his character well, and I like the theme that they're going with the blue and purple to showcase how he's a calmer character. And obviously Sai is one of the most calmest characters because he doesn't show emotion. Now let's take a look at his stats. So he's a tank, the unit, and we can see that his guard rate shines with 48%. All the other stats are pretty decent, nothing else stands out too much. Guard suppression rate is 20%, so that's an offensive stat that he's lacking. So it's hard for him to break or suppress other units' guard rates, but he has a lot of good defense himself and pretty all-around stats. For his links, you have his parents Ino and Sai, Shikadai and Shikamaru, so his teammate's dad. Then we have Boruto and Sarda, probably just friends from the Boruto universe. And we don't have too many Boruto units. For example, Chocho, his other teammate. Now we have a tribe with Shikadai and Boruto also. Deal single target damage, 58% extra damage to defense shinobi. And this seems pretty cool because it's a T tribe, so this could be useful maybe. Boost damage increase rate by 35% for the cell for the rest of the battle. Critical rate by 49% for the cell for the rest of the battle. Damage reduction rate by 33% for the cell for the rest of the battle. And not sure if it's going to show the rest there. Oh, thanks. Guard rate by 41% for the cell for the rest of the battle. So this is actually a pretty strong tribe, especially effective against D units. So if you ever need to use a tribe in like FG, ATB, etc., but the issue is that the units might not be the easiest to get / the most useful on their own. Shikadai could definitely be useful at least, and I think when we look through Inojin, he won't be as useful for PvE content, but this tribe is still useful if you have all the units built up and such. So moving on from that, going into his kit, the most important part of course. His Jutsu, he'll boost his own critical rate by 44% for attacking, deal single target damage to one enemy with 28% extra damage when his HP is above 50%, which is likely because he can survive hits being a tank, and he'll lower all enemies' damage increase rate by 17%, lower all enemies' critical rate by 28%. So for this Jutsu, he doesn't really debuff the enemies anyway. He does a good amount of damage on its own. For this Jutsu, he doesn't really debuff the defenses of the enemy anyway. He mainly just does a good amount of damage for a tank, and then he'll lower their offensive stats to help your units survive. He doesn't really boost your units in any way either. So this is actually not that good of a Jutsu. It's alright for the debuffs and the damage, but they're just better tanks that can provide more with their Jutsu. Skill 2, for units like him, with a vitality that doesn't give too much chakra in the beginning, you'll probably need to use the skill 2 more often. So he'll do regular damage and then boost all allies' damage reduction rate by 14%. So that's another point that I didn't mention with the Jutsu, is that the effects are not permanent. So they won't be as good as tanks that can provide permanent effects, and they're just much better skill twos that tanks have. That just outclass this one. Attack and HP boost. Then his skill 4, without limit break, boosts all active allies' damage reduction rate by 26% when he's active at the start of the turn. Lowers all active enemies' critical rate by 17% when he's active at the start of the turn. Lowers all active enemies' guard rate by 17% when he's active at the start of the turn. So he will do some alright effects. The numbers are decent, but not that good. He does 2 debuffs. The guard rate debuff is a little interesting for this D unit, and the damage reduction rate buff only affects the active allies, so it's not as good as the other tanks. Same thing for the other 2 debuffs on the enemies. They only affect the active ones. And the issue with this is that he just pretty much gets outclassed. This also suffers from the problem from earlier where the effects are not permanent, so that's just another point to take off, because other tanks can do some of these same effects, but they have permanent versions. Now, of course, he still has uses, and he can still fit in your team, because his team isn't, and of course still has uses and he can still fit in your team, because this game isn't always about just spamming all the best units. A lot of players don't have all the best units, or they're building towards something specific, so you can still put them in. But most of the time, for a veteran player, this unit is not going to be worth. That's pretty much the judgment that I have made. And to further prove that, we'll take a look at Limit Break and Vitality. So Limit Break 2 is he lowers all enemies' attack and damage reduction rate at the start of the turn after he has been defeated. Lasts for the rest of the battle. So now we have a permanent effect, but he needs to be defeated first, which is on average less likely than some of his allies being defeated, because he has more defense. And I don't think this effect is as impactful as other limit breaks. Once again, he's just getting outclassed here, and this is not necessarily terrible, but in comparison to what other units can bring, it doesn't really prove that he should be used. Now for his Vitality, to top it all off, we have the damage taking Vitality, and I've already explained before why this isn't as good as the other Vitalities tanks can have. So he just gets outclassed once again. And that's pretty much the conclusion for this unit, is that he's just getting outclassed in every way by some other units that you can just put on your team instead. And being a game where teams have limited spots, if you have a better option, you won't put this guy on your team. But for the purpose of showcasing, we will put him on our team. As we can see here, we're going to hop into Arena. Alright, here we go. So we have a turn 1 nuke cell and force. KTM and Kakashi. Just do strong damage. And Inojin won't be able to Jutsu on turn 2, unfortunately. But he does provide the damage reduction rate up and the debuffs on the enemy offensive stats and the guard rate. Using his fourth skill, and he didn't use the skill 2 there, I don't think. And basically, after this cell goes, the effects of Inojin's fourth skill will basically wear off, so it's not as impactful as you'd like. So we got our side taken out, which is very bad. Obviously, for the purposes of showcasing, this team might not be like the most optimum one, but it's unlucky that we got side taken out anyways. Wow, Ebi's just too strong. The OP units are still kicking. Now we have Inojin use his fourth skill again. He will help debuff the enemy's guard rate a little bit, and should be able to hit harder that way. His Jutsu also does a good amount of damage for a tank, so we'll be able to showcase that in a few seconds. Extra debuff from Kieran, who almost just kills both of them. And he'll also attack an A unit, which means he does even more damage, just because of types. CM dies. Now let's see how much Inojin does. And I really like this Jutsu animation. Okay, so that's actually a good amount of damage. And he crit. He did have a pretty decent crit rate from the stats, so. Yeah, that's basically it. I've already given my conclusion before, but just to reiterate it, this unit just gets outclassed by other units, so you really don't need to use him most of the time. There are cases where you should use him, mainly cases where you might be a newer player, you don't have all the units, you know. For veterans, you really don't need to put this guy onto your team. And that's basically it for this unit. We'll be doing Madara and other exciting content coming out soon. And this was kind of like a filler thing from Bandai, so this video might be a little bit less interesting than the ones in the future. But thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.